Okay. All right, cool. So let's start this recording. Yep.
That wasn't recorded.
Confirm. Great, we're live. Super. All right, so here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go over what are known as browser events. So one of the first things that we kind of took a look at was the fact that when you went to Twitter and you scrolled all the way down, what would happen? Not the refresh, the infinite scroll.
It would render more content.
It would render more content, that is correct. And so what happens is when you get to the bottom, it fires off a network request and gets more data. How does it know that the user did something? When you click a button, when you scroll, when you do anything, how does the browser know about it? Yeah, it's an event. All right, who here did like all the event labs? Or is it no? Nothing? Okay. So I'll introduce you. It's totally fine. So that is an event, right? When the user scrolls, that's an event. When the user clicks, that's an event. When you submit a form, that's an event. Something that happens is an event, just like it is in English. Words mean things, right? So why events? It's the only way we can predictably do something based on the user's behavior. So if the user clicked a button, that is an event that fires that JavaScript needs to be aware of so that we can then do something with that button click. We don't want something to happen until the button actually gets clicked, right? Like you don't want all these events firing and then the user is just polluted with random nonsense and you're like, I haven't even done anything yet. What's going on? So what are events and event listeners? An event could be any interaction the user has with the browser. So for example, this mouse, a lot of events just fired, right? Tracking this mouse is important because even without a click, if I move the mouse over on something, is it possible that something can happen on my page? All right, you ever like highlight over something and then the color changes on it? Or when you highlight over something, like the image kind of zooms in a little bit? Something like that. Or like back in the 90s when you like moved your mouse, there was like a tail that was like really fancy. It needs to track that. And so those are events. And even though the events are all firing, do you want something to happen on every single event that fires? So just because the user scrolls a little bit, do you want something necessarily to happen on your page? No, but does that mean that an event did not happen? No, so even though events are happening, you don't always have to listen for them. So for us in JavaScript to affect behavior, we have to track specific events. And so we will listen for specific events, even though multiple events could be firing at any given time. So there are plenty of event types. So this won't be on the Scrimba recording, but it'll be on like the regular one. But events, what should I put after this? That's right, MDN. Very good. If we look here, I don't have enough time to go over all of the events. You know what I mean? So for example, what are all the events? When you press a button, when the mouse gets clicked, a double click, right? What else? When the mouse drags something, when you let go of something, man, I don't know. Less common ones. There's a lot. Let's just go through. So there's like click. There's like a form submit. So like there should have been in your pre-work the Konami code. Have you seen this? Does anyone know what that is? Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start. Okay, it's okay. It doesn't matter. So the point is that you can listen for these things, all right? And so those are all events, and we can listen for those events, and we can listen for specific keys. Like so, for example, like maybe on my particular website, no big deal, shameless plug, if you press a certain key combination, something will happen. And it's just kind of cool to interact with. And so here, what we're trying to do is we are trying to simulate what normally happens on a website. And that is, I have a comments tab. Okay, good. Thank God. Sometimes I type weird stuff. So what I want to happen is I want to type in, okay. And if I hit submit, then it's going to add the comment. It's going to append the comment right there. That is the feature that I want. So naturally, we understand that there is some sort of submit event. And I want to listen for that event so that once the user clicks submit, then I can do something. What do you know about JavaScript? A particular type of function that will wait until something happens and then invoke a function later. The callback, right? So event listeners, naturally when I say an event listener takes a callback, can you like plug the two together, right? Naturally. So when the event fires, it will then invoke a certain function. And that's why it's important that we have functions that can be passed as arguments. So without further ado, let's create this certain functionality. The first thing I want to do is before we get to this more complicated stuff, let's get these working, right? When I click this button, I want an alert to happen. When I click this, I want it to console log something. And when I click this, I want some sort of console error to happen. Here on the bottom is the console, what actually will get displayed. And then this is like the code. So nothing too crazy about this IDE, right? Let's take a look at the HTML and then systematically break down what we're trying to do. So ideally, what do we have here? We have an alert me, a console log, and a console error button. So where can I find that in my HTML? I'm scrolling through and I see some nonsense. Great. I see this right here. These are very clearly correlating here. If we can always check an alert button, and if I hit save, and the alert button there. So this is obviously the HTML that's affecting these buttons, right? Now let's write some JavaScript. Bloop. Cool. So the first thing I need to do is, what should I do in terms of like listening perhaps, or being aware of the button, or understanding even where this div is, or this button.
Find the object.
Right, we need to find the object. Right, we need to find the HTML, the div, the span, the button, and then what should we do? Right, we need to listen, right? So once we grab it, we have it, we need to, what? Listen to any event on that button, div, span, p tag, whatever. So far, so good. And then we need to do what?
Action.
Yeah, some sort of action, right? So do something. Who feels that that was very hard to do? Okay. All right. That shouldn't have been very difficult, right? It's I need to be able to grab it and then listen to see when it's clicked. That's the whole thing. That's it. And then do something. So, do we know how to grab this item? Cool. How can we do that? Who said it? Someone said document, then someone said something else. Great. We'll do some sort of document dot query selector. Cool. And how do we do that? Oops. What is it that we're trying to grab? Let's take a look at the HTML. What is it that we're trying to grab?
Alert.
Sure, let's grab the alert one, all right? How do I grab it? We can grab it by the data name, but let's just say you don't know how to do that. I can grab it by the button, but what's the difference between these three buttons, and how does JavaScript know? It will just grab the first one, but let's think through. The second one, I'm going to have some problems. Can I grab it by the string in the button? No. Is there any unique identifier to this button that I can grab? Not yet. That's correct. So how do I create a unique identifier for this button?
An ID.
Bloop. And what do you want to call this?
Alert button.
Alert. Something like that, right? Alert button, kind of just irrelevant, right? So now there's a unique identifier. Back on my JavaScript, knowing this unique identifier, what can I do? I can use what? I can use getElementById. Sure. Do you guys rather do that or use the query selector? Okay. They will both return the same object, so let's go with query selector. Query selector works in the same way of all CSS selectors. So we have an ID, the hash, of what name? Cool. Great. How can I test this? I can probably set this to some sort of const, alert button equals to, and then I can just console log the alert button. Interesting, I get null. Why? Why would you think that might be? Let's take a look at our HTML. Let's take a look at where our JavaScript is loaded. So a quick thing to do is just either add defer and wait till later, or we can just drop that Bad Johnson right here. Cool. So now immediately on refresh, you can see the console log is the button. So this is just some of the things I taught you about in the last lecture that can really affect you. So now that we've got the alert button, great. Step 1, check. Step 2, we need to listen to an event on this. Who here knows how to do that? That's right, my boy Google, right? So if I go to google.com and I were to listen for event JavaScript. Okay? Cool. There's some sort of, I can tack on add event listener. Wow. Wow. Powerful. Let's go with the MDN definition. Cool. Boop, boop, boop. It's important to be able to read and understand this documentation. So the target, and that's going to be either a document or some sort of element, you can add an event listener to anything. So what do we want to add an event listener to? Cool. The first argument is the type of event, right? And the second thing is it's going to be some sort of callback function. So here I can take the alert button and I can add an event listener. What am I listening for? What event am I listening for? Cool. And now it needs a callback function. So all I'm going to do is just inline define an anonymous function. Bloop, 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 bloop. What should this anonymous function do? It should alert, right? So alert. And what do you want it to say? Yeah. You done pressed me, right? So if I click the log, nothing happens. And I click the arrow, nothing happens. But I click this, bloop. Whoa. Powerful. Cool. Whoa. That wasn't that impressive. I mean, great. Cool. Knowing what we know, right? This is the do something. Right here. The function itself is the do something. And that's really it. That's all of event listeners. 15 minutes. Cool. Well, all right, knowing what we know, right? Look, the process is important. Who here 14 minutes and 48 seconds ago knew how to do an event listener? No. Did I do anything that you yourself could not have done? Right? You knew how to grab the item. and then you have to listen for an event. You read the documentation, then you just implement the feature. So without trying to bore you, how would I be able to have this console log something? Very good. Copy paste. Okay. What would I copy and paste? What would I change?
You gotta add ID first.
Okay. Powerful. To what? Line 34? Sure. I can add an ID. Bloop. What do you want to call it? Log. Loggy. I know. Powerful. What do I need to do now? Copy paste what? This? Line 3? Sure. Okay. To log button. Sure. Okay, very good. Then what? Okay. What's happening here?
Change all the alerts to loggies. Change the alert.
Loggy button is getting an event listener. And it's listening for a click on the loggy button. And this function will now do what? It will now do alert, correct. But what I want it to do. Right. Loggy stuff. Bet. So if I hit error, what happens? Nathan. Alert, alerts, and log will. Powerful. Powerful. All right. Let's add and extend a little bit of this functionality to this right here. So there's some nuances to this. I want to dive into it. So, what do we know so far? What are we trying to do here? Right. So the feature that we want to build is going to be when the user types something in the new comment and clicks the submit button, what happens? Add the comment to the page. That's the feature. What are the steps? What information do I need, and how do I do it? Okay, find the element. What element? The text field, right? And the button. Cool. What's next? Grab the submit button. Well, here I'm finding the text field and the button, right? So let me do that here. Now that I have the text field and the button, what should I do? All right. Listen. Like Navi, right? Very good. Thank you. Listen for an event. But what event? Okay, listen for an event, right? A submit event or a click event. Right? And then do something. So far, so good. Cool. Yeah.
When you do like a submit, does that automatically go into press enter and submits for you?
Yeah.
Is that like added functionality? Like you have to explicitly not to do that? Is that part of like submit?
Let me go into this real quick because this gets a little bit dicey. So in HTML5, the current version of HTML that we're on, it is often confusing to new developers and seasoned developers that when I click this submit button, what should kind of happen? What is technically the event that fires? Is it the submit or is it the click? Psst. Both. The event that fires is both a submit and a click event because technically when you click this, you're submitting the form, but you've also fired a click. However, if I type something in here, bloop, and I hit return, did I click that button? But did I submit the form? Yes. So if you had to pick one of the two, what event listener should go on a form? Submit. Very good. That being said, if I click enter, it will actually also fire the click. That is a weird edge case that they've accounted for, and so it will fire both events. But buttons click, forms submit. And that's just an easy way to think about it. So whenever you're like listening for a form, on a form, and it submits, you should listen for the submit event. Cool? So let's actually do some of this stuff and see what happens. Great. Can I get the text field and the button? How do I do that? Where? Let's check out the HTML. Now you're getting it. Cool. And where is it? Which one? Which one is it? Bloop, bloop, bloop. 16? Okay, cool. Does this have a unique identifier?
Yes.
Oh, okay, very good. Without getting too crazy, because I have a very terrible short-term memory. Let's copy this. Bloop. And I need to do what? Const what? Comment, sure, is equal to the, this is more like the input, right? It's going to be the dot. And how do I get this? Bloop. Cool. Oops. I went too hard. I went hard. Cool. I should probably. Okay, great. And there it is. Powerful. That's very good, right? Do I want the input? What do I really want? Okay, so the input's important for me to grab, right? What else should I be grabbing? Cool. Const button, right? Or let's do the submit button, because there's a lot of buttons on the page. So now we need to be a little bit more explicit, and that is going to be dot and what is it? Do I need to add an ID? There's a class on there. Cool. So I can probably get away with it, right? And how do I do that with the class? BTN? I think it was BTN. BTN, very good. And then what should I do? Check. Boom. Very good. Be good. I can get rid of this console log. Cool. And so I'm good. Now let's take a look, right? So I've got these two. Check. Now I need to listen for an event. What do I want to listen to? Do I want to listen to the submit button? What should I listen to? Remember, buttons click, forms submit. So what should I listen to? I should listen to the form of when it's submitted. Do I have access to the form right now? No. So I need to do that. Suave. Cool. Const form. All right, or just put comment form. It's equal to a boop, 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 boop. Yeah? Yeah. Nope, just kidding. Boop. Cool. So I should also, dang. Wow, there it is. Powerful. So I have the form, right? Cool. So how do I listen on this form? What should I do? Just add event listener onto the wild. On the comment form, I'm going to add an event listener. Right? And what am I listening for? And what am I going to do? I'm going to listen for a submit event. So On the submit event, what does this do? And then it's going to do something. Oop. And it's going to take a callback function. So a function. Cool. Cool. So far, so good. And then when it submits, let's just test by simply logging yeet form submitted. Cool? So the idea here is that if I click this submit button, what should I get? Let's find out what happens. Huh. Take a look at the console really fast. It flashed and then it went away. And then if you look at this blue bar over here, what do you think is actually happening? It looks like a page refresh, right? And so what's happening is forms by default do what sort of HTTP action? Post, which hits what RESTful route? If I was like creating something. Create action. And then inside create, it does like @user is like user params, blah, 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 blah. And the last line of that is what? Redirect. So that is the default action of a form being submitted. What I want to do is prevent the default. Yeah.
Every time you're creating events for a form itself, you need all those three breakdown.
Do I need all the what?
All the three like consts, inputs, all the three frames. Do you need them for every form?
Well, let me ask you this, right? We're listening for a submit on the form. Do I need this?
Yes.
Who still thinks I need the submit button? Am I doing anything with the submit button itself?
No.
Gone. I don't even know no old James, right? Because I'm listening for the submission of the form, I don't necessarily need the button anymore. So here, slowly, you'll start to refactor your code and like realize like I don't really need that, and that's okay. So here, there is an event that happens on the submit. The function, by default, the callback, has to keep track of the event. How do you tell a function that it's going to receive something?
Bananas.
Yeah, it gets an argument, right? So this function is going to know about the event. Bloop. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to call this E. Right? E for event. What I want to do is, what I see happen is a form by default does some sort of redirect. And so I want to prevent that redirect from happening. I can take the event and I can prevent the default. This is a method. Is this method being invoked? Will this run?
No.
Bloop. So now, let's take a look. Bloop. And there it is. Bloop, 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 bloop. Thank you. Without it, oh, but like you see, the console doesn't even get wind of it. It just does that redirect so fast. Argue what?
The argument E.prevent default is what you have to put in.
That is correct, right? You take the event and you prevent the default action. And because the form will automatically submit, and then from the server, it will tell it to do some sort of redirect, you want to prevent that from happening.
So it's not like we're reassigning any sort of default action, but if we were to, we just put it in the
You're not reassigning the default action as much as you're just stopping what normally happens. And because we stopped what normally happens, do you think this form submitted and did anything? No, but now we have to take control. So with JavaScript, we now need to do some stuff. And that is, we need to take what the user typed in here and then add it to the page.
You console log E.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me, let's take a look at what E is. When I submit, I'll see the event. Oh, there's no details. Dang it. This technology. You guys just want to see what this is, right? This is the event, and there's a lot of attributes to event. So,
Either E.dir.
no. This is what I'm going to do. Take the code, bloop, just so you can kind of see it. Oh, okay, that's not the one. Events. I just ripped all that code. All right, let's do this. Bloop. I'm going to take this right here. And so when I open the actual index, I'll get this, right? If I open the console, I'll see event listener. No, oh, because I haven't moved the HTML yet. Okay. Is it async? It's all right, whatever. It's not important right now. Cool. What the? That was weird.
No, there's not the IDs. Yeah, I like the IDs. You need to come with the HTML file.
Oh, I see.
It's just a submit.
Yeah, I don't really care about that. It says line 7 is busted. Oh, because the alert button. All right, let's do this. We don't need this. Cool. On submit, this is the event. So here we can see everything that happens with the event. So far, so good. So the event has a target, and that target itself is the form. The event itself is a type submit, and the target is the form. Are there any questions on like where I'm getting this data? Yeah?
But then, so it's by default that the event goes automatically into the argument of the callback function.
The event automatically gets what?
Yeah, it's automatically put as an argument for the callback function.
We put it there. So yeah, if we look back here, you can see that inside of the event listener, the event gets passed into the callback.
But when did you declare that to be called? Is that just native to event?
Oh, this could be, yes,
Okay.
it gets something, and then it, all right, it gets something. Like it doesn't matter. I'm just calling it E because I know that the event, this submit event, gets passed into the callback because the callback needs to know what to do when the event gets fired. So naturally, the callback function will receive the event.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so that is the event. Thank you for asking me to console log it. So the next thing we want to do is, on this submit, we prevented the default. We need what information to add onto the page. The input, right? Where is the input right now as it relates to the event listener? Where's the input right now as it relates to the event listener? Right. Is the input inside the event listener? No. So in terms of the lexical scope, the execution context, the event listener, when do I grab the input? On the page load or after the event gets fired? One more time. When do I grab the input? On the page load or after the event gets fired? Who says I grab the input after the event gets fired? Okay, great. Let me read this code to you, line for line. This is not important. Great, my JavaScript loads. First thing I do, number one thing, I grab the input. Then I grab the comment form. And then I attach a listener to the comment form. And then I console log inside the submit. So now let me ask a serious question. If I click submit, right, this runs. Very cool. When I log input, if I log input, what will it be at any given point in time? It's this object right here, right? We learned about HTML. What is the value of this input? Let's find out. In my HTML, what is the input that I grabbed? This new comment? If I said value equals to, right, Scooby Snacks. It's already in there. Cool. In my input, I have something called value. So far, so good. So my input, can I ask the input for its value? Scooby Snacks. That's crazy. What about the ID? What about the type? So I can ask for its value. Is that what I really want? Do I want the input? Do I want its value? Great. So I have the value of the input here. What if I changed it? Let's do this. Let me log what the console is, what the input is right here. Cool. So I hit submit, what's the value? Okay. Okay. It's important that I pull the input and I get its value after the user clicks submit. Does that make sense? I need to pull the value after the user clicks submit. Because if I pull the value before the submit, like for example, if I were to do something like input.value here, or let's do this, const, right, user typed input.value. If I were to console log, right, user typed, I would get Scooby Snacks. Scooby Snacks. Scooby Snacks. Because here I'm pulling the value immediately. No matter what happens on this submit, when did I pull the value? Before the user submitted. So I want to make sure I always pull it. And it has to make sense when. So when we talk about the execution context, when we talk about how your JavaScript runs, where you write your code will make a difference. The lexical scope, the environment of your code makes a difference. All right, so I now have this input, right, successfully. Boom. Oops. What the? Oh, I'm not logging it, sorry. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. Let's go back to my HTML. I don't need to set this. I don't need to hard code it. It's kind of silly. Yeah. Boom. I'm gonna go. So what do I want to do with this?
Put it on the screen.
I want to put it on the screen, right? How do I do that? Through inner HTML? Through my HTML, great. How do I do that? Do you remember how we added an image to the page? Append, okay. Append child to what and what are we appending? So we know that we need to add this text to the page, right? We already know something like append child is some sort of method, okay? What do I do with it? Inner text. What do I do?
Figure out where exactly you want to put it.
Yeah, let's figure out where do I want it. And what file should I look in? Cool. So where do I want it? Probably the comments container. Okay, cool. Do I have access to the comments container?
You kill. We gotta find it.
And I believe it was like comments container. Let's check. Yeah, let's test. Comments container. Cool, it's there. Great. Remember, do not refactor your code. First make it work, then make it sexy, then make it fast. All right, that's the order that we should be going in. So don't worry about crazy refactoring. You will start to see after everything works where you might want to refactor and make your code better. So the first thing is, I have this comments container. Great. I have access to it now. What should I do with the comments container? Okay. Add the text to the comments container. It's easy, right? How do I do it? Great. So comments container dot append child. Great. What am I appending? Sure. User typed, right? Will that work? All right, let's find out. Failed to execute append child on a node. Is user typed? What is this exactly?
It's just text.
It's a string. Append child needs a node. So how do I create this node? Right, we did it already. Dot create element. What should I make? Should I make an image tag or like a p tag, something like that, right? Cool. And now I have a const paragraph, like a p tag. What can I do with this p tag? The p tag right now, if we log it,
Is that the child there?
let's console log the paragraph. I get an empty p tag. What do I want to change about this p tag? That's right. I want to change the paragraph's inner text. And what do I want to change that inner text to? There we go. Cool. So now what can I do? I append the paragraph. So, bloop, 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 bloop. And that's it. That's how it works. So, I'll get to your question. All of this is good process. It's like, great, what do I need? What do I have? How do I get it? When do I need it? And you write the code accordingly. So before I get to your question, one quick refactor. I'm listening for a submit. Every time I click submit, what is it doing? What is it doing? It creates this new const, and it grabs the container. Do I need to grab the container when I submit? No, I can grab that anytime I want. I don't need to create and try to grab it every single time. Based on scope, the way JavaScript works, do I still have access to the comments container inside the event listener?
Yes.
Yes. So look at this function right here. I prevent default. Ooh, I should probably fix all this. Look at this terrible indentation. I know. Take it back. No, no thanks. All right. So the first thing to review, and I'll get to your question, is after you look at your code, then you could start to see where you want to refactor. But you got to make it work first, and then you can make it better. So we stopped the form from submitting and doing that page refresh. Then we grab the input. We have to grab the input once the user clicks submit, because we've recognized that if we grabbed it beforehand, it'll never adjust or change. I created a new paragraph, which I changed the text of that paragraph to whatever the user typed, and then I added the paragraph. What was your question?
I mean, kind of answered what I was thinking about, but I thought like you might have to like move through it like we did in Rails, like when we want to list stuff, but it just creates its own p tags.
It creates a new p tag every time. So that being said, should I move this out?
Yes.
Who says yes? Says no. Why would I not want to move the creation of a new paragraph, a new element, every time the user submits? Right, I want to create a new p tag every time the user clicks, because then I'll add a new p tag to the page. All right, but let's take a look at this user experience. Every time I hit submit, what happens to the form? It's still there. Like, this text is still there. I want to be able to get rid of that. And I want to, what do I want to do? I can give you the answer, or we can. Form, right? And then what do you want to do? Is it refresh the form? Clear the inputs? Elements of type reset. Okay, something about DOM form reset. Okay. Okay. I can just call dot reset on it. Wow, let's try. Should I do it on the comments container dot reset? What should I do it on? Cool. Oop. Typo. User error. And there it is. And so like each one of these things that you want to do, you can look up. Like how fast did that take you? All right? And so this whole thing was 47 minutes long. But the most important piece is that process. Right? What do I need to grab? What do I need to have access to? What am I listening for? When am I listening for it? And then what do I do once I have this? What's the next step? If you can write it all down, the code comes. It's the process. You will start to see a very wild breakout in Mod 3 amongst all of you about how you want to do something. And I have to try to debug all 19 of your code independently. If you cannot tell me what you're trying to do, we're going to have a bad time. So the process is super important. Yeah.
This might be looking way ahead, but
Sure.
how do we get it to persist in the database? What do I mean without refreshing?
That will be Friday. We will write and persist data to a database. Cool.
Does the prevent default prevent the post request?
Say again?
If you had a database with comments, is the prevent default method that you're calling on the event like stopping the post request from happening?
Yes. The prevent default is stopping the submission of the form.
What else is it stopping? So we know it's not doing anything like stopping something we don't want it to.
Say again?
What else is it preventing? Like, what are the defaults of it so we don't like inadvertently prevent something?
What are the defaults? It depends on what you're adding the event listener to. So for example, a div, right? If I click on a div, what's the default? Nothing, right? But if I click on a link on an A tag, what's the default? Open a link, go to the link. So on a link, I can prevent default. On a form that submits, I can prevent the default. But on a P tag, on a click, I don't know. If I see that you grab the P tag and then you add an event listener and you put event.prevent default on it, on your code challenge, I will immediately ask you, like, why did you do that? And usually it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was copy and pasting code really fast. I actually don't need it, is a very valid, acceptable answer where I'll be like, awesome, cool. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to prevent the default of the click for the p tag, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And then at that point, you're kind of like, just yourself, right? So you have to be writing with a purpose for JavaScript. You cannot guess. It's not Rails. Rails was convention over configuration. Does that start to make sense now? That like everything was kind of predefined, and then you wrote code that fell in with what was already configured. Here, it's like, cool, what do I want to do? Great, I want to do this. Great, I'm just going to go do it. Which is the beauty and the power of JavaScript. Yeah. It's actually really, really exciting. You'll hear me say this every once in a while, but the JavaScript is the Wild West. You can do whatever you want. It's lawless. Yeah. Yeah, the paralysis by choice, something like that. Choice paralysis, yeah.
It's also paradox of choices.
Yeah. So just get over it. Like, I want to do it, and I want to do it this way. Smart. Good to go. All right. Are there any questions about events, how they work, what they are?
Does the submit button cover the answer?
Say again?
Does the submit cover like the answer button and the code?
Does the submit button do what now?
No, like if you were to press enter on the phone.
Yeah, on submit, if I press enter, it will also fire the event. Very good. Good question. Cool. So this is what should happen in theory. I can replay it. Okay, yeah. Should be able to replay it. And blah, 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 blah. Like it's going. At some point, you should just be able to go into the file and just change whatever you want. It's still loading here. I have to publish it. I'll publish it. Publish. Intro to JS events. Pilot. Be nice. Smiley face. Secret or public? Secret, private, public, secret, public, private? Sure. Secret. Okay, and I will literally just Slack it to your class once I get the link. I don't know. Yeah. I will also stop the recording.